Silence. It's deafening. I sit in this room in the basement, and I'll admit it's somewhat depressing, but things change, you know. I spent a lot of time in this room. No lights. No sunlight in this corner, in that corner. Wasting away the hours in playing video games and surfing the internet, listening to music. It used to be my father's home office and my mother. Now, behind this wall is, or was, my sister's bedroom. And, well, obviously, she's spending her time with her husband now, my brother-in-law. And it's just the remnants of my family in this house. Like, my dad is home, he's upstairs. But the room upstairs, you know, that I usually do these videos in, is and was my bedroom. And then when I first moved out to work in Toronto, that all got packed up, you know, out of my father's enthusiasm. And this became another living area. You know, the TV, and this TV stand was in the corner here. There was a day bed here. And all the files and his knickknacks got moved upstairs into that room. My grandmother passed at one point, more than it was 4 or 5 years ago now. And I was sleeping in the smaller room instead of the master. And, you know, boxes and boxes of stuff from my grandmother and my uncle's house up in Wyerton. And we moved into this house in 2007. Something like that. While I was away at Trent. And well, I finally found my copy of The Debt-Free Graduate, you know, and I talk about it in the first volume. About the boom, bust, and echo, you know, the Asian tigers in that economic bubble of the late 90s. This was published in this one anyway, this copy, in 1996, Copyright 96, 98, 2003. So this was likely printed a bit after that. Everyone remembers what happened in 2008. You know, and I had a job when I was in university. I worked at Villa Car Wash, or Villa Auto Wash in Peterborough there. That's the only time I've ever driven a limo. And I would say my art career really started in that house on McDonald. And I might have talked about this, the one painting, which is, you know, is this what you want? It got stolen from a pizza shop there downtown by Irie Bites or something like that. The Jamaican house. I had it hung up in it was a hipster joint, you know, small hole in the wall pizza joint. Not that far away from the Peterborough Gallery. And that painting got stolen off the wall. There was a few other small paintings that I did that weren't very good. I have photos of them. I don't remember exactly what I did with them. I might have destroyed them or threw them out or painted over them. They were more experiments than anything. You know, the one looked like Helix, and then the other one was I Slave, where it was just a silhouette, and you know, very much imitating the Apple ad campaign at the time for the iPod, with an Apple Mac on a table. And that really, I think that both that and in the suburbs, Whitewash Way, that's the name of the painting, really echoed how I felt about my life at the time and what was really happening in the culture. You could feel that there was just something going on, even from a point of ignorance that you know, built up to The Big Short, and that echo that happened through the Canadian economy, and what resulted in a huge loss to my father's financial gains in the stock market. It was, as the story goes, like somewhere around like $60,000 or $80,000, whatever it was. Some of the proceeds from selling the house on Gardenvale. I never really wanted to move away from London. I never felt, well, you're never really ready to go on a grand adventure, but this, you know, the threat of OSAP debt and bank debt, because details being details, I was able to get a line of credit of about $12,000 from CIBC, co-signed by my father, along with the OSAP, because I didn't think that I was going to get OSAP due to the income of my parents at the time. And, you know, I wasn't exactly good with money. You know, I wanted a fancy free life. I wanted to drink and eat my way through university. And then I got caught in that trap of World of Warcraft and maybe drinking a little too much. And, just not being able to keep up with the deluge of information that's jammed down your throat within the first year. So, if I hadn't said it before, I'll say it now. I wanted to be one of the first pilots in the Canadian Forces with an arts degree. Because at the time before, and just before that, they were asking all their pilots to basically have a physics degree or something similar in the sciences. And I didn't have the inclination or the marks in the math or the physics or the chemistry in high school because it didn't click for me. I don't think that it was any fault of the teachers that taught me at CCH. There might be a history of a learning disability. I don't really know. It was never really pinned down, never diagnosed. And, social anxieties can get the better of you, compounded by being more of an introverted person. And I'm a lot quieter than I come off in these videos. Someone that I hadn't seen in, I don't know. They were our neighbors when we first moved here in 95 or 96. And in the townhouse complex there on Belmont here in London. And she says, well, you've changed a little bit, but you were always quiet. You know what they say about the quiet ones? They're usually the smartest. Not her words, mine. And I'm looking at, the visual arts and history here. This large volume of art history. And I'm going to flick through. Did you know I have a university credit in art history? Romanticism. Goya, Delacroix, Constable. Art for art's sake. Aestheticism versus realism. Manet. There he is. The execution of Emperor Maximilian. Luncheon on the grass. I always like Manet for his paintings of the little girls and the bar scene. in Olympia, if I remember correctly. The defiant whore. I identify with that sometimes. Because, you know, I'll just work for anybody. Il faut être de son temps. One must be of one's own time. This was an idea originating in Romanticism, the counterpart of the new sense of history or historicism, justifying a rejection of superficially romantic themes, and encouraged artists and writers to select unpicturesque, unconventional, and sometimes sordid subject matter. But this did not necessarily involve any break with the past or the manner of paintings as sharp as that made by Courbet and Manet, nor did it inevitably imply a rebellious attitude towards the social system. I rebel against this veneer, this shiny glazed shell that is our society as it is right now, by creating things of substance and authenticity. My sister, as I said in my one of my shorts, basically did all the organizing and all of the decorations, the planning of her wedding. I assisted with the more pragmatic elements, but she graduated debt-free. All of her wedding was done without borrowed money. And she's on disability. You believe that? And all the majority of this past year, since not working in October, been reliant myself again upon my father and my sister and the food bank. You watching me right now in this period, just after COVID, where I feel the indifference of other people and their unwillingness to feel empathy, because it's his fault for the position that he's in. He was making $45, $50 an hour. How come he doesn't have any savings? How come he doesn't, etc., etc., etc.? Because I know this is how stupid people think. And I know this is how the attitude of the government is right now. Because, well, you didn't make the right choices, son. I have found 99 ways that didn't work. And only one that does. And the only way that works for me most of the time is the way that works for me. I am not like anybody else I've ever met in my life. So this is why I'm doing this. You know, I'm a bit late to the party. And you get to come on me with this slow TV version of the hyper produced, hyper edited version of the world and my reaction to it. Overextended, overhyped, glossy, and empty, vapid, of little substance, and a surplus of arrogance. Because it's demoralization. It's simple. You know, I didn't think that I would encounter such depravity and such corruption in my life. I feel like I was sheltered for my benefit and my innocence. But you inherit the sins of your parents and their falterings. So hopefully you'll do better than them. I was going to make this whole thing about Manet. But yeah. But I'm gonna choose something different. I'll probably go over a couple other influences here, but then I'll go into them in detail with other videos, like Degas, Toulouse-Lautrec, Renoir, Winslow Homer. Let's see. Turner, definitely Turner. Before getting into, well, everybody knows this one. The Great Wave off Kanzawawa. That's one of the reasons why I made that wave painting, but not in a similar style, you know. But definitely the roll and the rip curl. The Great Wave was, well, they're done from wooden block prints. And every one of them is different, you know. There's Monet, Impression. There's Manet. Degas and Manet. I'm going to read this. Because, you know, I'm reminded, being in the restaurant yesterday, of my time. You know, I've done everything in a restaurant except be a cook, sous chef, and the host. So I've been a waiter, I've been a dish pig, I've been a bartender. And there's Manet's scene with the bartender. And if you didn't know about this, this is shown on Olympia. The black choker is a signifier or a visual signal of a whore. So, and even in Roman times, that the waiters and waitresses were sexually available and they were on the menu. So you could have your bit of wine, and then the distillation of a woman. All right, put the feet up. Put some glasses on here. When Degas exhibited his Woman on the Terrace at the Third Impressionist Exhibition in Paris in 1877, it was a subject that attracted attention. Not the Impressionist handling and novel mixed media technique, nor the extremely refined artistic and innovative formal qualities that we now value. To contemporary Parisian eyes, the women were obviously prostitutes. Monsieur Degas seemed to have issued a challenge to the Philistines, wrote one critic. You must have seen those rouge, shop-soiled creatures oozing with vice, cynically recounting their business of the day. You know them and will come across them again in the boulevard. 12 years previously, an even greater scandal had been caused by Manet's Olympia. For this, too, was unmistakably the portrait of a prostitute, in every way more brazen and painted life-size. A young woman completely nude except titillatingly for her slipper, a bracelet, and a choker round her neck. Reclines on the disheveled bed, with a black woman bringing her a bunch of fresh flowers, and in the lower right corner, a black cat with a tail erect. Manet's Olympia was shown at the Salon of 1865, the most important artistic event of the year for the Parisian public. The name Olympia was itself enough to make them raise their eyebrows, as the better class brothels were full of Floras, Aspasias, Lucerias, etc. The public whose gaze met Olympia's level stare and the unblinking eyes of the cat was astounded. Never has a painting excited so much laughter, mockery, or catcalls, one critic remarked. Daumier drew a bourgeoisie family gaping at it in bewilderment. Less able artists caricatured it. At least 30 critics derided it in the press, complaining loudly of the seemingly brash and slapdash way it was painted, as well as the embarrassingly provocative and explicit modern subject. Émile Zola, a personal friend of Manet and soon to become famous as a novelist of the seamier side of contemporary city life, answered them by concentrating on the picture's painterly qualities. You wanted a nude, and you should choose Olympia, the first that came along. He wrote as if addressing the artist. You wanted luminous, bright patches, and you put it in a bouquet of flowers. You wanted black patches, and you placed a negress and a cat in the corner. What does it all mean? You hardly know, and neither do I. This was, of course, disingenuous. Zola must have recognized in the alley cat at least a symbol of sexual promiscuity. It was true, however, that in this painting, Manet was developing a new manner in pictorial representation, experimenting with tone, making strong contrast between related shades at either end of the scale, and eliminating the softening intermediate range. That is one of the reasons why it has made such an impact on young artists, who recognize as marking a breakthrough. After Manet's death, they were to prevent its exportation to America by subscribing to buy it for the Louvre. It is easy enough to see why Olympia offended the general public if it is compared with other female nudes exhibited in the salon and bought by the French state for museums. In handling it, it could hardly be more unlikely that these dainty colored and smoothly painted canvases, Olympia's slender adolescent body, was also in striking contrast to their voluptuous figures, which exemplified the accepted form of bourgeoisie femininity and sexuality. Full-bosomed, narrow-waisted, wide-hipped women populated one salon after another and made a strong erotic appeal to men of the Second Empire, whose wives were tightly corseted to give their bodies the same ample contours even when fully dressed. Women in pornographic photographs of the time are similarly fleshy and buxom. In paintings, they were politely distanced in time and space, transformed into goddesses rising from the foam of southern seas or reposing in Acadian glades. They displayed their bodies freely, though invariably without pubic hair. Though as undermining objects of desire, wanting for male embraces. They are passive bearers of meaning, not makers of meaning, for the determining male gaze. Male gaze is stupid, which projects its voyeuristic fantasies onto them. As women have female gaze, the sexual objectification. You see, even when this was written, this book, there was hints of this cultural Marxism and more aggressive feminism. Manet was not simply reacting against the kitsch style of such paintings. He believed he was furthering the great tradition of European painting and was dismissed by the hostility and incomprehension by which his work was received. Titian, so-called Venus of Urbino, of which he had painted a copy, when a student, was almost certainly a prime source of inspiration, as were the odalisques by Ingres, whom he greatly admired, though his attitude to both painters was not without irony. That Titian's Venus was then thought to have been a courtesan is no coincidence, but Olympia differs from these precedents. Her raised head and the eyes of the cat confronted with a spectator as if he has just entered the room. She holds his look, placed to it as if signifying male desire. The spectator's eye is drawn to her left hand, not softly furled like that of Titian's Venus, in overtly provocative gesture, but emphatically clamped down as if to veil the absence of a penis, and arousing in the critics of an anxiety that they could ally only by ridicule. Prostitution was accepted in 19th century France as a necessary evil, officially controlled by law. If registered with the police, prostitutes were licensed to work as filles publiques in brothels or filles en carte, soliciting in the streets, both subject to medical examinations. According to Zola, Olympia, aged 16, was painted by Manet in her youthful tarnished nakedness, a fille of our own time, whom we have often met in the streets. The model, Victorien Mourent, M-E-U-R-E-N-T, 1844 to 1927, was then 16 years old. As Zola said, but she is not known to have been a fille en carte. She frequently sat for Manet, who painted her at least 9 times, notably Luncheon on the Grass, and she later became a painter. In Olympia, Manet gave her the luxurious setting of a courtesan above the system of police surveillance, one whose favors were reserved for the upper bourgeoisie, hence their embarrassment. In fact, most prostitutes probably evaded surveillance, and a writer complained in 1870 that they were everywhere in the cafe concerts, the theaters, the balls. They're on the promenades in front of most of the cafes, as in Women on the Terrace by Degas. They were an inescapable part of modern city life. So what does that say of women? That is not to forget the cultural context and attitudes at the time. But, I just watched something from I'm forgetting his name right now. Sorry. Yeah, I'm forgetting his name, but it was a piece about TikTok and this recent trend about how it's like softcore porn for teenagers, and these cam whores are adult performers, and one of them's dressed up like an elf, acting like an NPC with repetitive gestures and phrases, and people are just throwing money at them like it's growing on trees. Paul Joseph Watson, that's it. Olympia was 16. That makes me wonder how many of you out there have jerked off to that painting. It's kind of funny to think about, isn't it? How many people have masturbated to paintings? Or gotten off to art. But that's kind of the point. That's kind of the point. Art is supposed to be sexy. It's supposed to be the milk of human kindness. That's what I would want. I want to provoke I want to provoke orgasms in women. That's what I want. And you don't need money to do that. And I tell you, I'm not going into any more debt or chasing any kind of status because of a woman. I'm sad that I'm alone. It breaks my heart that I've watched so many women in this era throw themselves into prostitution. It really breaks my heart. It's terrifying, isn't it? This era that we live in 2023, the current year of sexual liberation for everybody. But as is the phrase, too much liberalism leads to slavery. At the heart of my soul, I am an artist. And there's no roadmap to become a good one. To have some sort of influence over the culture or other people. And so I think about all the time that I wasted in this basement, the depression and the hopelessness and the failures. And this is well after I knew about the allegory of the cave, you know. But I decided that at that point in life, that my life was basically over, and that I had few options or little support to drive my career forward. I could feel the cultural change and the dominance of the Rainbow Mafia, let's put it like that. And that I might not ever achieve the heights that I wish to see, because at some point, because of the cultural touchstones and the movements, that white people would be made into a punching bag and the straw man of everyone's arguments. Even back in 2006, you know, taking IDST and, you know, learning of colonialism and the other side of history, according to, you know, the other side, those who were subjected to colonialism and its effects. And like the history of Africa and the history of Russia. But when it comes down to it, everybody suffers. Everybody has a story of suffering. I just don't want to live as a slave anymore. And people look at me and they laugh. You're not a slave. Everything is in front of you. Why are you complaining? That's what I feel like the attitude is. Like I have someone with their hand behind my head, slamming it into a wall. Stop doing that. 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 Until my brain is mush. So the question remains, why do you hate me? Why does the world hate who I am and what I represent? For my skin tone, or my sexual orientation, or my talents, or my skills and my family, or my very existence. I think about it, and there's been great moments in my relationships with women, but none of those relationships romantically have lasted more than 2 years at this point. And that gives me great anxiety. I have some lifelong friends, but the manipulation in this post-internet epoch by these technocrats, say that, like Instagram suspending my account, or Facebook, these algorithms that are seriously aggressive, and this snitch culture. There's holes in the uniformity of that. So I'm going to fix this at some point. It was never really a huge annoyance to me. There's more than enough material to draw from here to make a patch. I have so many influences over my art. But you should want that. What more could you want from an artist? Thanks for watching. Come on, you fuck.